we survived. And sometimes you just have to survive. But once you do, then you got to get back together and get going. And it's the same with business or any aspect of your life. Like, push through. There's a reason you're going through it, and you are stronger than you ever think you could be. I'm sure most of you are aware that we went through some health issues with my girls when they were young. I want to share one story in particular with you guys. Addie was 7, and she had to have spinal cord surgery. She had a tethered spinal cord. So she was having accidents and couldn't control her bowel and her bladder very well, which, being first and second grader, that's really tough. And the kids at school are starting to talk about you, things like that. So it was a little bit emotional, but found a doctor in New York that could help her. We get there, we do the surgery. All things are going well. She didn't realize that her legs hurt all the time, and as soon as the surgery was over, she felt better and things like that. So we would have to go. We were going for checkups every 2 or 3 weeks up to New York, just for a small time period because you're recovering from surgery and they want to make sure everything's good. And then they showed us how to take care of the wound at home. And fast forward a little bit. I don't want to go too deep into this, but Addie, we get to the time period when it should have started healing and the wound starts opening up. And we're kind of like, what do we do with this? Like, how do I keep this clean, dry, not infected, all that? Talk to a doctor, and he says, yeah, sometimes his patients have this happen. There's a genetic condition that Addie suffers from that is causing this. So we go back and see the plastic surgeon that he works with. We do a surgery to basically remove. It's a pretty, I wouldn't say topical because they didn't go all the way to the spinal cord, but it was still deep because it wasn't healing inside either. But they did kind of a surface surgery to try to promote healing, clean it out, and heal. There's no infection. So we do this battle for like 2 years, okay? And this whole time we were doing everything we can to keep it from getting infected. That's like worst case scenario. She gets staph infection in this wound to her spinal cord. Man, we were seeing wound care at the hospital. We were seeing, I feel like we were seeing everybody. We were working with a pharmacist that did wound care stuff. He did compounded and special. He could get wounds to heal that wouldn't heal. And we actually did start getting it to heal with him, which he was a godsend. But so we start getting it to heal, and we start noticing she's having all her symptoms again. Like, she's lost control of her bladder again. She's lost control of her bowel. Talked to the original surgeon in New York, and he said, yeah, well, with her genetic condition, it's very likely that the scar tissue builds around the spinal cord and tethers it again. So unfortunately, as long as she's still growing, she's at risk of this. But with as symptomatic as she is, we need to do surgery again. And she's not completely healed yet, so let's do it again. So make the decision. The whole goal of this is not, I don't want her wearing a bag for the rest of her life because she can't control her bladder, or, you never want your children to have a disability, and you want them to have as normal of a life as you can. So we do the surgery again. It's been a roller coaster few years, and we're tired. It's awful. So we do the surgery again. It's super successful. They have the original plastic surgeon from the beginning, so they do extra precautions on her healing and set up follow-up appointments, all these things. Felt like, okay, we've kept it clean and infection-free for 2 years. We can do this. We've got this pharmacist that's helping us. So he starts from the beginning. Let's do this. So we're getting it to heal. It's taking longer, but we knew that. That's part of her problem, is she can't heal as fast as normal. And then she's telling me it's bothering her. We're changing her wound every 2 or 3 days, because you don't want to mess it with it too much because you want it to try to heal. Anyway, I go to change her wound one night. She's like, Mom, it's really been bothering me. And I did the bandage, and literally a pus pocket on her scar or her incision. I kid you not, all the blood drains from my body. Not really, but you know what I mean. That feeling, like, that's an infection. I know what that is. I'm not a medical professional, but I know what that is. That is what we have been doing everything to avoid for the last 2.5 years. So we go to the ER, and there's a whole bunch of drama. I'm not here to talk about the medical care she got here or there or whatever, but we go through testing, and it is an infection. So they're doing ultrasounds to see how deep the infection is. And they come in one day and they say, we need to talk about what next steps are, because we're pretty sure the infection is in her spine. I think it's osteomyelitis. We don't have any proof of this yet. It's just, this is what they're looking for. This is worst case scenario. Just MRSA, which is the antibiotic resistant staph infection that you get in hospitals, in her spine. Not her spinal cord, which would have been a whole different battle, but in her spine. So there's just something in me that snapped, and I kept my composure. As a mom with your kids, or a dad with your kids in front of them, you have to be strong. And I told John, I was like, I'm just going to go for a walk down the hall. I think he followed me, but I remember turning the corner and just breaking down. My worst fear just came true. She had MRSA in her spine. Like, everything that we had been trying to avoid came to fruition. I mean, you do all the right things, see all the right doctors, you're extra careful, and sometimes it just doesn't matter. It's going to happen. In business, the same, and in life, the same thing. Sometimes you can do all the right things and the bad things are going to happen. So you have to feel it and go through it. And sorry, I may be tearing up a little bit because I still can feel how I felt in that hallway. Just like, what are we going to do? What are we going to do? How do we get through this? Like, I didn't even know what MRSA in the spine meant. I just knew that was like the one thing we didn't want. And it was what we got. We ended up flying to New York after that. And the original surgeon, which he's great. None of this was from him. But when he went in to confirm if it was MRSA in her spine, a piece of her bone was so infected and decaying, it broke off. And he said, absolutely, she has MRSA in her spine. And so we started IV antibiotics. I think she did 4 months of IV antibiotics, which is fun because they've got a PICC line in her arm that she has to wear all the time. And then that got, I mean, there's a whole bunch of trauma that came with this. But what I want to say is sometimes the bad things happen. But you know what? You got to push through. There's a way through. Addie, except for the gigantic scar down her back, you would not know she went through all that. She literally is one of the toughest kids I know. And I, even to this day, forget some of the traumas and things that she's gone through, because that was really scary for her. She's 7 to 9 years old, going through things that even as adults would be so hard to go through. But you know what? We pushed on and we got through it. And I mean, I won't say it's great because it's not great, but we're through it and we're on the other side and life is good and we survived. And sometimes you just have to survive. But once you do, then you got to get back together and get going. And it's the same with business or any aspect of your life. Like, push through. There's a reason you're going through it, and you are stronger than you ever think you could be. We're only strong when we have to be. And sometimes we have to pull it up more than others, but you know what? Push through. You can do hard things. I tell her that all the time. I tell the other one that all the time too. You can do hard things. It's a mindset. We got the worst news we thought we could get. I know there's way worse news to get, but in that moment, that was literally the worst news we could get. And we survived it. And we thrived after it. Like I said, you see her today, you would not know she went through that. Literally, she's just like a normal kid, normal teenager, moody, happy, cranky, all of it. She's normal. Like, has full function of bowel and bladder, no permanent damage from the spine infection. Like, she made it, but you can too.